All right, good evening, everybody. It is 7 p.m. on the North Fork of Long Island and 4 p.m. in the Napa Valley. I am Sam Kimball from Crush Wine Experiences, formerly New York Wine Events. And thank you guys for joining us on virtual day trip to wine country. We are here for some great selections to buy from the North Fork of Long Island for the new year. This is our first virtual tasting of 2022. So give yourselves a round of applause. You guys are the inaugural viewers and participants in our virtual tasting series, which has been going on for a couple of years. We're edging up to episode 100, if you can believe that. And we will be going to the North Fork of Long Island, to Cutchogue, New York, which is a beautiful village and town. And we'll be visiting with Suhru Wines. Suhru is an absolutely precious and awesome producer out on the North Fork. Got a great tasting house. And our theme with Suhru tonight is going to be Long Island wine country and its terroir. The land, the sea, the air, the soil, what makes it a special place for wine growing and wine making. The background is really, in a word, is family. Suhru Wines is a family-run winery established in 2008, and it was really a dream that was developed over the course of a husband and wife, Susan and Russell Hearn, and their life together. And Russell, who's the winemaker, inspired Susan's passion for wine, introducing her to many of the different nuances and subtleties and flavors and styles of wine. And it is a joint love of wine that inspired this brand, this Suhru Wines, and more on that in a few minutes with our special guest. Welcome everybody. Jump in the chat and let us know where you're logging in from. We'd love to see where everybody's based. We're really looking forward to a fun tasting. A few interesting stats about Suhru, about North Fork of Long Island, about Cutchogue, the town where the winery is. Cutchogue is, this is a little known fact, the sunniest town, the sunniest zip code in the state of New York. It's also the sunniest zip code on the eastern seaboard, because as you'll see when we look at the map in a moment, we're literally sticking 85, almost 90 miles out straight into the Atlantic Ocean from New York City. And it's a different climate than New York City. It's a different climate than the metro New York area. And it is very sunny, and it's perfect for growing grapes. And there's a lot of vineyards. There's about 50 to almost 60 vineyards on the North Fork alone, vineyards and wineries rather. And 1.3 million people a year visit the North Fork of Long Island. We all hear about the Hamptons, and there's lots of people who go to the South Fork and go to the Hamptons, but the North Fork is really a wonderful destination, totally agricultural and very, very special. Welcome everybody, welcome all. Please ask any questions or make comments along the way in the chat. I want to say hello to California, Long Island, I think Illinois, Chicago, I believe, Northport. So we've got a geographically diverse group, which is great. And so speaking of geography, we are going to travel virtually to Cutchogue, New York, on the North Fork of Long Island. And let's take a look on the map at where we're headed. For anybody who is not familiar, some of you are, especially if you're on Long Island, familiar with the geography. So in the background, you'll see that little red map pin. That's Suhru Wines in Cutchogue. Welcome, North Carolina. Awesome. And you're way out. You can see New York City all the way to one side of me, and all the way on the other side. That's about a 90-mile stretch. We're not even out to the tip of the North Fork. It's about 90 miles out into the ocean from New York City. And that is where Cutchogue is. And that is the heart of the Long Island wine country. And this background photo that I just put back in my background is an actual vineyard in bloom, growing there in the North Fork AVA, or American Viticultural Area. With that, and without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest, Shelby Hearn Ulrich. She's the daughter of Russell Hearn, the winemaker, and she's also the general manager and the boss at Suhru Wines. So welcome, Shelby. It is great having you here. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here as well.
Where does this broadcast find you tonight?
I'm in Riverhead. I'm from my house tonight. I'm not too far from the tasting room, about 15 minutes west.
I know it
I've
well.
got my beautiful tasting room behind me, so we're next best thing tonight.
I love the new tasting room. It's the first I've been there the other day. It was the first time I've been there since you did the renovation and you turned it into Suhru Wines Tasting House, which is great. So when we talk about Suhru Wines, for anybody who's not familiar with your family and its winemaking tradition, what's the calling card of Suhru Wines? What's that special point of difference?
Sure. Well, we really pride ourselves in making nice, refreshing, high quality, approachable wines. So we're really focusing in on the varietals that we personally, as a family, enjoy best, as well as the wines that we hope everyone will enjoy and really showcase our region, really kind of across the board, focusing on bright, crisp, dry, stainless steel fermented whites and all medium bodied, soft tannin reds, very food friendly across the board. One of the kind of the pillars in our family growing up was that good wine should always be enjoyed with good food, with great family and friends. So all of our wines are really designed to be enjoyed with a meal.
That's great, and very much a fruit forward approach too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is great, and I am a proponent of the same philosophy. It's rare that I am even sipping a wine and not having a bite of something delicious to go with it, because that's where the magic happens, is the combination and the pairing. And I have to ask you, how did you come up with the name Suhru? It's Suhru.
Absolutely. It was quite a process when we were originally deciding what we wanted to call Suhru. We went through a lot of different options, and we really felt that it was the best reflection of the blending of styles and of tastes of both my parents. So Suhru was started by my mother, whose name is Susan, which is where the SU comes from. And then our winemaker is my father, Russell, where the RU comes from, with our last name H in the middle. So you get Susan, Russell, Hearn, I'll smush it all together, and you get Suhru, which is a really nice, I think, representation of what the brand originally was. Now we kind of have to stick my name, my sister's name, my husband's name in there to really fully encapsulate it, but we're trying.
Well, I remember when I first met your family, and this is going back 7+ years ago, and I thought the name was so interesting and catchy, and I think that's proven to be the case. And you were already a few years into it at that point, but I think it's a great name, and I know that people always ask whenever I mention it, like, where's that from? Is that what language is that? Yeah,
absolutely. It's funny, when we were the original name that we were considering was Suru, so without the H. It was actually my mother's email address at the time, and so we went to copyright it and realized Suru is a sake company in Japan. It's a Japanese verb that means to be, so it was kind of the perfect happy accident. We added in the H, and the rest is history.
That's so cool. You learn something new every day. So Suhru in Japanese is to be. I love it. So now, your father, Russell, is the winemaker, but he's been a very prolific winemaker on the North Fork of Long Island for a number of years. He's from Australia originally, and he's really collaborated with various folks in the wine world from around the globe. Tell us a little bit about his background, because obviously in terms of the taste profiles and the creative direction for the winemaking, that's his corner of the company. Tell us more about Russell and his sort of approach to winemaking.
Absolutely. So my father grew up in and around wine. He was first introduced through a kind of a summer job, just working cleaning in the winery. My grandmother, his mom, worked in sales for a winery in Western Australia in the Swan Valley. I'm sorry, in Margaret River. So he was introduced there and started working a little bit at a winery and really started to fall in love with it. So he decided to pursue winemaking and worked for a number of years at Hortons in Western Australia, which is the one of the largest wineries in Australia and still is to this day. So we started working there, worked there for a number of years, really fell in love with wine, and then did a number of harvest exchanges. So worked in New Zealand, in France, in Burgundy, as well as in the US in a number of areas before meeting my mom, who is an American. The American and the Australian met in a youth hostel in New Zealand and slowly made their way back to the US. So he came here following a girl and stayed ever since. So he worked for a number of regions in the US when they first moved here. He worked for a winery in Massachusetts and Virginia, looked at a couple out of California, and then decided to settle on the North Fork. So he's been making wine on the east end of Long Island since 1990. He was originally the winemaker for Pellegrini for when they first opened, and he was the winemaker there for a number of years. He's also currently the winemaker for Leap Cellars as well as Suhru Wines, so it's got a nice imprint in the North Fork, and is also the founder of Premium Wine Group, which is the first custom production winery on the East Coast. So he opened Premium in 2000, which was really designed to allow small producers like Suhru, like ourselves, to flourish and grow as we slowly scale and grow over the years without having to put the very large financial investment of building our own winery. So we make all of our wines at Premium Wine Group under his direction, which is very convenient because we do have our winemaker right on site every day. But it's really great. Premium Wine Group, it's basically, I usually kind of describe it as the WeWork of wineries. We come in, we bring all of our own fruit, we have all of our own wine direction, and then they've got a really great staff there that executes our vision for us to make sure that we're having the highest quality wine with access to state-of-the-art equipment, which is really fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's great. And here he is surrounded by in his element, surrounded by the toys at the facility there. Yeah, no, it's great to hear that. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but I think that for everyone watching to understand the depth and the breadth of Russell's experience as a winemaker is hugely helpful in terms of understanding where Suhru is coming from. And as far as the winery was founded in 2008. Suhru, the wine brand.
Yes.
But the tasting house came along 10 plus years later, in 2018. And I have a question here from Nancy. Does Suhru have its own vineyard?
Sure. So that's a great question to start. So Suhru does not own any acreage on the North Fork at the moment. We take a slightly different approach. So we source our fruit. So we work with a handful of vineyards across the North Fork, as well as actually one in the Finger Lakes where we grow our Riesling. And it's been a really great way for us as a smaller brand to really be very selective and pick and choose the individual varietals that we work with, as well as the individual vineyards that grow them best. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility to chase quality. For almost all of our wines, we're getting the same fruit from the same vineyard, from the same row, from the same vine year after year. We've got some really nice consistency coming through there. But like I said, it gives us a little bit more flexibility to pick the individual vineyard that grows Pinot Grigio best versus the one that grows Cabernet Franc, and so on and so forth. But coming back, Sam, to your question, so we started Suhru in 2008. It was originally a second career for my mother. So she wanted to start it small and grow it over time as she slowly retired from her first career as a physical therapist. So for the first 10 years, we were primarily focused on wholesale. So you could find us in shops, in restaurants. And then in 2018, Suhru had reached a point where we felt it was really time to open a tasting room. My career and background is in wine sales and marketing. So I was actually at the time getting ready to leave another position. I had been working in Brooklyn and in Manhattan. So I was getting ready to move and decided to move out here and open the tasting room. So we opened in 2018, May of 18, and had a couple of fun years to really grow. And then pandemic hit, and it's been a challenge ever since, but it's been really nice for us. It's been a challenging but fun way to really see what Suhru can do. So we've really had to push and adapt and twist, but are doing some good things.
Well, I have to say, I wish I had I should have taken a photo when I was there the other day, but to show everyone, the tasting room, the way it's set up is it's really open. It's an open plan. It's very, the way you've set it up, it's very, COVID protocol, like you're not on top of other tables. And it's just terrific. I mean, I think the renovation, I saw the space when it was the previous tasting house going back years ago, and it was much more sort of like, claustrophobic and a little bit, sort of on top of itself. And this is, you open it up and it's really accommodating, I think, for small groups. I mean, I think you said you do groups of up to 6 people.
We do.
Yeah. So I think that, like so many other of the wineries and tasting rooms on the North Fork, you guys have navigated the current situation, and with any luck, things are improving, knock on wood.
Absolutely. And I think kind of with our tasting room too, what's nice is we set it up, the vision from a design standpoint was that when you walk into the tasting room, it should feel like you're walking into someone's home. So we want you to welcome you into our home to enjoy our wines. The tasting room design is very much modeled after my parents' the aesthetic of their house. Mm-hmm. So it was very nice. We didn't actually have to make very many changes from pre-COVID to, to the current environment. With spacing, we'd always had this very wide open kind of homey feel to the space, which was really great.
Absolutely. Question from Alicia. Which wineries did Russell work at in California and Virginia?
Sure.
She's familiar with both places, having lived in them.
Excellent. So he did a harvest exchange in California. And to be perfectly honest, the winery, the name is escaping me. I don't believe, if I remember correctly, I don't believe that the brand is still there under that name. So I don't actually have an answer for that at the moment, but when he first moved to the US and was working full time, he was the assistant winemaker for Culpeper Winery in Virginia, as well as Commonwealth Winery in Massachusetts. So those were the 2 East Coast wineries that he worked at in the late 80s before moving to Long Island.
Alicia, if you have any Virginia wineries that you're particularly fond of, let us know. We've never done one of these profile and virtual tasting sessions with a winery in Virginia. And there's, from what I know, there's some good ones. So we should do that at some point. All right, a couple more questions and then let's get tasting wine. So Pete, we've got some very knowledgeable folks who are watching, I can see from the chat. And Susan, you read my mind. Some people who are very familiar with Long Island and other people who are just very savvy about the wine world and wineries. To give some dimension to Suhru, like how many cases do you produce? How many different selections are in your portfolio of wines that you make,
Sure.
etc.?
So we make on average about 2,500 cases a year, give or take, based on the year and the harvest and production, but right around 2,500 cases. And from that, we make anywhere from 10 to 12 different wines per year. We try to keep it very, very limited. We make a sparkling, 3 whites, a rosé, and 4 to 5 reds, depending on the year. We very much are focused on if the grape quality isn't there that year, we're going to skip over that vintage. So luckily for us, that hasn't happened too often. Happens, with reds more so than with whites in our region. Sometimes we'll have a hurricane come through and cause some little bit of headache at the end of harvest. But it gives us a little bit of flexibility. Being a smaller producer, we're really focused on making the best possible bottle of wine that we can.
Well, and you also make the best can of wine that you can.
We do.
I love the cans. So for anybody watching who's interested, Suhru has an amazing line of the wines in cans, and there's the super cool can design, just great. They're 4-packs. You go to the beach. Yeah, look at that. There you go.
Yeah, I've got the Pinot Grigio in can in front of me at the moment. I don't have the rosé, but we do both the Pinot Grigio as well as our rosé in 375 ml cans, so half bottle cans.
Got it. Yeah, it's great. I sampled the cans the other day and I love them. So that is so cool, and I love the fact. How has it been? A couple years you've been doing the cans?
So we started doing, this spring will be our 3rd canning run. So we launched cans right as the pandemic hit, which is actually really good timing for us for a lot of reasons, as everyone was looking for small format and to-go wines. But we really figured with our location and our proximity to the ocean and the beach out here, it really just is a no-brainer. So many times I myself find myself out at the beach on a boat, kayaking. You want something to drink. You don't want to have a whole bottle with you. So it makes it so convenient for just grab and go, or even just, when I want to have a glass of wine, husband wants to have a beer, what have you, makes it nice and easy to open that without having to worry about finishing the bottle.
And the cans are 12 ounces. So anybody who's interested, that's a half bottle of wine. So
it's more than you think.
You don't have a can necessarily by yourself all at once, maybe over the course of some time. All right, so let's get into tasting. The first wine is your 2020 Pinot Grigio, which is somewhat unusual. There are not a lot of Pinot Grigios coming out of the North Fork. Tell us a little bit about this wine, the tasting notes. And I've got mine here, and I'm actually pairing it with an herbed cow cheese, which is really interesting. It's kind of like an herb goat cheese. It's sort of a whipped cow cheese. It's very soft and creamy. But tell us about this Pinot Grigio.
Absolutely. So we're making an Italian style Pinot Grigio, which is a little bit different from what you tend to see coming out of the North Fork. You do see a lot more Pinot Gris. The main difference being Pinot Grigio, you're going to ferment completely dry. You're typically going to pick it a little bit earlier than you would for Pinot Gris. For Pinot Gris, you let the grapes hang on the vine a little bit longer because you want a little bit higher sugar content coming through, as well as lower acidity. For the Italian style Pinot Grigio, we're really looking on bright, crisp, vibrant flavors, really leaning into that acidity. So what you see coming through off of the Pinot Grigio, right off the nose. Got a lot of that lemon, lime characteristics, that nice citrus. And then on the palate, I tend to get some really nice Granny Smith mingling with a little bit more of that lemon and lime. So bright, crisp, refreshing. Pinot Grigio is our signature white. It is consistently one of our most popular wines, and is one that we see a lot of success with. This particular vintage that I'm drinking right now is the 2020, and this particular one actually just last year won gold at the 2021 New York Wine and Grape Classic. So it's really got a really nice reception.
Yeah, it's got a really refreshing acidity, but a nice balance, which is always when something has that real crispness. What's the alcohol content?
The alcohol, I can tell you actually the exact, but the alcohol for the Pinot Grigio, it typically does fall in right around 12, and this vintage is exactly at 12%. So it's nice. It's right in the middle there, not too high, not too low. It's got some nice bright crispness and pairs really well with food. I think of all of our wines do, but the Pinot Grigio is one of my favorites to pair because it has all of that nice, bright, crisp lemon flavor. So it pairs really nicely with fish, pasta, anything with a little bit of richness. My go-to, one of my favorites, particularly in the summertime, is a nice lobster with a glass of Pinot Grigio. You can skip right over the butter. You can skip right over the lemon, bite a lobster and a sip of Pinot Grigio. That's all summer long.
As I like to say, when you have a really nice, refreshing, acidic wine like this, that's like a squirt of lemon on that lobster.
Exactly.
No, it's terrific. Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one, which is your 2020 Sauvignon Blanc. Oh, by the way, let me just to show everybody really quickly on screen. I will show everybody the Pinot Grigio. This is the Pinot Grigio in the bottle. Mine that I'm drinking, my sample tonight is actually from a can.
I am actually too. I've got the can. I have the bottle in front of me as well, but it's the exact same wine that's in both the bottle and the can. So it makes it really nice, you know, when you're only looking for a glass or two, to just crack open one of those cans.
So for anybody who would be interested in ordering, what's available to order on a one unit at a time is the bottle, because the cans I think come in a pack with rosé, right?
You can get them as a mixed or on their own. So the cans come in 4-packs. They're $34 for 4. So it's $34 for the equivalent of 2 bottles of wine. And you can get them as 4 Pinot Grigios or 2 Pinot Grigios and 2 rosés. So you can do a mixed with 2 and 2.
That's great. And again, SuhruWines.com, promo code is cheers if you're interested in this wine. So people can order the cans on the website as well.
Absolutely. That discount code you can use for any of our wines. So it applies to the bottles and the cans of the Pinot Grigio, as well as the other 3 wines that we're tasting tonight and everything else that we have on our website.
All right. So Myra, hi Myra. It's good to see you. Happy New Year. I'm going to skip ahead for a moment on my slides. And because Myra asked a really good question, because she's in Pennsylvania, and she asked, "Do you ship to Pennsylvania?" I believe the answer is yes.
Yes, we do.
And bear with me a second, but I'm going to show everybody the map of where Suhru ships in the United States. So bear with me a moment, and voila. So if you see gray diagonal lines through your state, Suhru doesn't ship there, but it's like 40 something states. It's most of them.
Yes, we do. So we ship to a little over 40 states, and then we wholesale. So we sell in restaurants and in shops in both New York and New Jersey. And if you're looking for those specifics of where we do shop or we do sell in shop and restaurant, we do have a full complete list of that on our website if you're in New York and New Jersey and looking to find them close to you.
I think virtually everybody who's watching and hanging out with us here is spoken for. You ship to those states. So great.
That's the goal. We're trying to ship to as many as we can.
Oh, Alicia, thank you for the suggestions. I will connect with you offline. And I would love to explore that, because we have people who watch in the Mid-Atlantic and Southern tier states as well. So, all right. So moving right along, we are going to jump into the Sauvignon Blanc, and it's the 2020 Sauv Blanc. I love this wine. I'm a sucker for Sauvignon Blanc in general. It's one of my favorite varietals. And we'll hear about your much more interesting pairing ideas, but I'm pairing this with a nice fresh brie cheese that I got this afternoon.
Which is an excellent pairing choice. My general opinion is you can't go wrong with brie in any wine, but it's always a great choice.
True.
So our Sauvignon Blanc, the wine that Sam and I are actually both drinking tonight, is our 2020 Sauvignon Blanc. This is a pre-release. This vintage will be released next month. So we do have the 19 available currently, but we'll have the 20 coming very shortly. They're both excellent. The 20, however, is going to have really nice fruit notes. So it's a little different than what you've seen years past from us. As I was saying before, we work with a handful of vineyards. In 20, we actually had to change vineyards. So we got a slightly different terroir coming into the wine, slightly different flavor profile, but one that we're very happy with. So typically what we've seen from our Sauvignon Blancs is you get that really nice light herbal quality. You get a little bit of gooseberry, some nice light green notes coming through. So really nice bright fruit notes, a little bit of lime. We're making a French style Sauvignon Blanc, so really leaning into the minerality of the grape there. What's nice about the 2020 and what we've seen with this particular vineyard, which we have worked with in the past, but hadn't the last couple of years just because they didn't have fruit available. This particular vineyard shows a really nice tropical note. So you get a little bit of that guava coming through, as well as the gooseberry on the nose. You start to get a little bit of honeydew melon, a little bit more round, lush flavors. You're also going to get a little hint of pineapple coming through on the finish as well. So it's a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more complex. You get a really nice range of fruit notes coming through. And we're really happy with how this one has turned out.
Yeah, this one, I love the tropical, the additional secondary notes of tropical and melon. I definitely get a little bit of citrus, but it's complex, and the finish is terrific. I mean, this finish is just amazing.
Thank you.
Any grass or hay, Mark asks?
Yes, you definitely get a little hint of that grassiness on the nose. I would say if that's style that you're particularly interested in, I would recommend our 19 over the 20. I think that grassiness comes through a little bit more with the previous vineyard that we are working with. The 2020 is going to lean a little bit more into those brighter tropical fruit notes coming through.
And this, really nice. The vineyard is North Fork based.
Oh, absolutely. We moved one town over. So the vineyard that we're working with in 2020 and moving forward is in Mattituck versus the vineyard that we had been previously working with. It was in Cutchogue. So just slight difference of Sundays, slight difference of soil. So just makes a little bit of difference in the flavor profile.
You know, I'm really glad you brought that up, because and I'm based out on the eastern end of Long Island, and I'm 10, 15 minutes away from the North Fork. There are microclimate differences on the North Fork itself, which is only a 20-something mile stretch of land. And so the microclimate of, Southold is very different than Mattituck or Northville, for example, or all these little areas, and that's important. And the soil there are soil differences too.
Absolutely. It's really funny when I think about it sometimes. So we make about a dozen wines, and we work with just about a dozen vineyards for those wines. We work with a large variety of, the vast majority of them are in Cutchogue. But even within the small town that is Cutchogue, we're working with a number of different vineyards for different varietals, because there's that big of a difference from one vineyard to the next on what grows best. And I think with the North Fork, because it is such a small geographic area, but is surrounded on three sides by water, weather tends to come across the North Fork diagonally, which means that you can very often have, and it happens very, very regularly. I'm in Riverhead, which is 15 minutes west, or I live in Riverhead, which is 15 minutes west of our tasting room in Cutchogue, and it regularly will be raining at my house and blue skies at the tasting room, or vice versa. There's a very big difference from one town to the next, just based on how the wind comes across the island and kind of whips those weather patterns across.
Well, when you look at the map of Long Island, and you see, the degree to which, we're sticking that far out into the Atlantic Ocean, it's dramatic, and that's where you get that microclimate, the dynamics of microclimates. If you look at this map, imagine how much the weather changes given all of that water on both sides of Long Island, the Long Island Sound, the Atlantic Ocean, and then the bays and the bodies of water at the eastern end. So it's like a weather laboratory, the North Fork, essentially.
It is. And without that water, we would be a very different region. The bays, the sounds, the ocean all really acts to moderate our temperatures in a way that this region would be dramatically different without. So it causes us a little bit of stress when sometimes you have different weather patterns from one town to the next, but is also what keeps it exciting.
Absolutely. All right. So I had this Sauvignon Blanc with some brie. I mean, it just, the rind of the brie with the tropical fruit notes, I mean, it's just amazing. What's your favorite food to pair with the Sauvignon Blanc?
Sauvignon Blanc, I've got to go oysters. A very classic pairing, but whether they're raw on the half shell or grilled, oysters and Sauvignon Blanc will always be the quickest way to my heart. I think there's just something so special, particularly with this style of Sauvignon Blanc that we make. That minerality really leans into a little bit of salinity that you get from the oysters. So it's a really nice complement, I think, to the seafood pairing. But I drink a lot of both the Pinot Grigio and the Sauvignon Blanc. I would say you'd be hard pressed to find a seafood dish out here that I wouldn't pair with either of those.
I mean, and for the amount of local seafood there is, you'd be hard pressed to find not a lot of great seafoods to go with the Sauv Blanc. It's a bountiful. That's the thing I love about the North Fork. There's just so much going on agriculturally. There's so much happening in terms of seafood. All right, so I love the fact that you got me out of my comfort zone today, Shelby, and I went to the cheese shop and I said the words, I would like some English cheddar, which is very foreign to me. I lean towards Spanish and Italian and French cheese. And there I was, and I said, I want some English cheddar. And the next wine, the Cabernet Franc, for me, the pairing is magical with the English cheddar.
Excellent. I'm so glad that you like it. I think English cheddar to me it's one of those styles that gets overlooked very regularly. It just adds there's something a little bit extra. It's so different from what we as Americans often think of as cheddar, but it has all of that richness, those nice tyrosine crystals. So you get that little bit of burst of flavor, which complements the minerality and the agedness of the wine, I think, really nicely.
Yeah, here it is. I mean, it's complex. I love the flavor profile, the aromatics, and it's also, to me, as Cabernet Franc, which I like to tell people is sort of the unofficial red wine grape of the state of New York. This does Cabernet Franc New York style proud.
I agree. This is actually, the 2019 is the first vintage of Suhru Cab Franc that we've ever made. We had historically, we had a second label in addition to Suhru that we were making a number of our reds under. We have decided in the last couple of years that it made more sense to consolidate under one brand, particularly as Suhru started to lean more and more into reds. So we're really, really excited about this. This wine was released in September, so it's brand new. This is the first of many. Our 2020 Cab Franc I was actually just tasting the other day is tasting beautiful, as is the 21. So looking forward to seeing the next couple of vintages of this. But we are making kind of what I like to refer to as the classic North Fork Cabernet Franc. You've got all of those really nice, rich, complex, deep flavors, leaning nicely into more of those red fruit notes. You've got some nice currant coming through. You've got a little bit of raspberry, a little touch of plum, little hint of cherry, really nice dynamic flavors coming through there. The Cab Franc tends to have just that nice little bit of an herbaceous quality on the finish too. You get a little bit of those dried herbs, as well as that little bit of acidity and that little bit of spike, giving it a nice little lift on the finish, which is nice.
Now, I love this. The balance is amazing. You know, the aromatics, the start and the finish. It's like it's like a play. It's like a well-written play. There's an act 1, an act 2, and act 3, and it just all works together. And what makes that work for me is the sense of balance.
Absolutely. We do. I think one of the main things coming into that balance is across the board, we are looking for very fruit forward wines. So we're keeping the acidity nice and bright as well. But we play a lot with Hungarian oak, given that my father's background was originally in winemaking from Australia. In Australia, they use a lot of Hungarian oak, which is a very soft flavor imparter, as opposed to American or French, which tend to have a little bit more aggressive flavor notes. So we use a lot of Hungarian oak in our aging. Our Cabernet Franc, this particular vintage, is actually 80% Hungarian, 20% French. So we are utilizing a little bit of French oak to add a little bit more depth and dimension there. But Hungarian oak really allows, kind of the way that I like to think of it is essentially it allows all of the benefits of oak aging without a lot of the flavor imparters. So it allows the fruit really to shine through while you're still achieving all of that nice, robust, round flavor, softening the tannin, adding that length that you really see from barrel aging.
Absolutely. So Janet says, let's talk cheese. Janet, you're speaking my language. I already talked about the English cheddar. So what else, what other cheeses, Shelby, would you suggest for this one?
Sure. I think the Cab Franc in general, I really like pairing this wine with something with a little bit of a more herbaceous note. So anything that's got, one of my kind of go-to favorites is anything with a rosemary crusted rind on it, something that's really incorporating that herb characteristic, I think pairs really nicely. Tends to bring out a nice complement to the fruitiness of the wine with that savory quality of herbs, pairs really nicely. I also, kind of going back to, we talked about, I know you're having a brie with the Sauvignon Blanc. One of the kind of classics in our house is no matter what holiday it is, there's a baked brie, usually themed some way to the season. And this summer I did a lot of, my husband got a smoker beginning of the summer. So we did a lot of smoked baked bries, which was really nice. Just throwing it on the smoker with a little bit of rosemary, a little bit of olive oil. That I think again pulls out really nice flavors. I'm a big fan of just about anything with rosemary paired with this wine, whether it's lamb, a stew, anything with this nice kind of hearty, herbaceous qualities pairs really nicely.
Shelby, you are setting the bar high, Susan has said, which I agree. I pity the other special guests we're going to have over the next few weeks and months.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll be back in a couple weeks, so if you want to hear more, come to the Valentine's Day tasting.
come to the tasting house. By the way, this Cab Franc, to me, let me know if you agree. It's a medium-bodied red, right? I mean,
Yes.
this is a cool climate, North Fork. You're not going to get these giant fruit bomb, like gigantic reds that you would get out of California or Italy. Nothing wrong with those, but this is a really elegant medium-bodied red. But it has a tremendous impact. It's powerful, and so I got a little crazy and I tried it with the Stilton that I have here, which I was saving for the last wine, which is a fuller body red. And it is just, it's also magical with the Stilton cheese. So this is a very versatile wine, I think, in terms of food pairing and flavor profile.
Absolutely. I think, and it's one of the things that I think makes Cab Franc so successful across New York. One of the reasons that it grows so well here and that you see such high quality Cab Franc coming through is it does, I think at its core, it's got the balance that you want. It has all of this fruit note just inherent on the grape. It also has all of this richness. You can play a lot with barrel aging to add, you can make it a fuller bottle of wine if you want. You can also keep it nice and medium, which is what we tend to do, and let that fruit shine, but it's very versatile, both with food pairing and what you can do with it in the bottle, which makes it a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're coming around we're down the home stretch here, and we're going to talk about the Ember, which is a red blend. Super interesting because for a cool climate red blend, it's got noticeable and rather charming tannic quality to it, which will lend itself to other types of foods. So tell us a little bit about this, and I saved a little of my Stilton. I almost finished it with the Cabernet Franc, but I saved a little for the Ember. So tell us about this wine, and this is a brand new, right?
Yes. So this we are drinking the 19 Ember, which was just released. So we have just released this new wine, which we're really excited about. It's still it's a 19, so it's still on the younger side, but I think drinking really beautifully, as is the 19 Cab Franc. Our Ember is our Bordeaux blend, so it is a very classic blend of the 5 main Bordeaux red varietals. So it's predominantly Merlot blended with Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Malbec, and Petit Verdot. So we have all 5 of the main Bordeaux red varietals. And we're aging this exclusively in Hungarian oak, which again, I think really helps build out that tannic structure that you're talking about. One of the really nice things about the Ember is being that it's a blend. I think it's a really good showcase of my father, our winemaker's style. I think blends are the best way to get a sense of a winemaker's style, because they should show the best representation of that vintage. So our Ember you tend to see really nice red and dark fruit notes coming through. You get all of that nice blueberry and blackberry, that raspberry, cherry, deep plum, really kind of lush, round, rich flavors coming through.
I get a little bit of tobacco, a little leather.
Absolutely. You get just a touch of that on the finish, that little bit of smoke, which is all coming through from all of those tobacco, the leather, that smoke, all of it's coming through from the barrel aging. What's nice about this wine in the blend is each of the 5 varietals that we're using for the blend, we're aging individually. So you can we have a lot of fun coming into the spring, tasting all the blends, deciding which percentages we're going to do for this vintage. And what we consistently see is while the Malbec is the smallest percentage in this blend, it gives the most amount of flavor to that finish. Most of that tannic structure, that smokiness, that leather, all of that's coming from the Malbec versus the Petit Verdot and the Cab Franc add a little bit more of that lift, a little bit more of that grip on the finish. So it's a really nice, kind of coming back to what you were saying before about balance. I think the Amber is for us, is the epitome of that. You've got all of that fruit coming through from the Merlot and the Cab Sauv up front, the Malbec adding that smokiness and that dimension and that lingering finish on the end, and then the Cab Franc and the Petit Verdot adding a little bit of that bite, that sharpness, that grit, that tannin on the finish.
I don't know, maybe because it's deer hunting season on Long Island, I see this with a nice venison with sauce, like this would go great with that type of a dish. But I think it holds up to, a filet mignon or,
Oh,
a
absolutely.
steak,
Absolutely. It pairs really nicely with steak. I do it a lot this time of year with chili or a stew, which absolutely you could do with venison. I tend to, in our house, we tend to lean towards lamb, which definitely has
this would be
something
great.
to come back to with my dad's Australian roots, but lamb is typically the go-to. So both the Cab Franc and the Amber both pair really nicely with lamb, but I think with a chili or a stew or something, those really nice, hearty, warm weather meals, this pairs really nicely.
Now, this is great. You know what I like about these 4 wines, Shelby? You could buy these as a 4-pack, and this could be the wines for a really nice meal at home. These could be the wines for Thanksgiving. These could be the wines for the holidays, because you really run across the spectrum from the light, the Pinot Grigio, the refreshing, the acidic, the Sauvignon Blanc, and into Cab Franc and the red blend. It would follow the meal.
Oh, absolutely. You throw our sparkling into this mix, and this is very close to what I drank on Thanksgiving. Right. So it absolutely is. And I think that's kind of what we try to do. We're making, we're not looking to make 20 wines. We want to keep it under, 10 to 12, so that you have kind of a wine for every occasion, so that you can build a whole meal around the transition from a couple of wines, and you got a wine to go with just about everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I want to share my screen again and show just quickly show the website. But these are like, I'm loving. I tasted all the wines before, but when I have them with the cheeses, when I'm pairing them with foods, it's a whole nother experience.
Oh, absolutely. I think our wines definitely, like any wine, can be enjoyed by themselves.
And that makes a lot of sense, because for anybody who's curious, the most widely planted grape on the entire North Fork, which is a major wine region in New York State, is Merlot, actually. And then Cabernet Franc is the perfect grape for this climate, this cool climate. So again, unofficial red wine grape of the state of New York. Those two together to make a rosé, you've got a winning combination.
Absolutely. And the Merlot in a rosé specifically gives it this really nice round, soft flavor. We tend to have a little bit more Cab Franc. We're Cab Franc dominant in our rosés, because coming back to wanting to be very food friendly, Cab Franc in a rosé and on its own has this really nice, bright, crisp, acidic quality to it. So it adds a little bit more lift, a little bit more brightness, makes it really just that little bit more refreshing on a hot day.
Absolutely. I'm going to do something I've never done on these broadcasts, and that is I'm going to make a really goofy hockey analogy, because I'm a big hockey fan. I grew up in upstate New York, and I grew up playing hockey. So Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player of all time, whatever team he was on, he made all the other players better. Merlot makes the other varietals better. Whenever you
Absolutely.
blend Merlot into a wine, a rosé or a red blend, a Bordeaux blend, it makes everybody better. That's how I
Absolutely.
see Merlot.
I've never heard it compared that way, but that's a really great analogy that I will use from here on out, because it's absolutely true. Merlot, I think Merlot brings so much to the table. Everyone's got their opinion on Merlot on its own. You may love it, you may hate it. Personally, I love it, but everyone's got their own opinion. But when it's used in a blend, I don't think there's ever anything negative that can be said about it, because it adds that richness, that roundness. It brings all of that fruit. Really, it brings something quite substantial to the table.
Yeah, no, it enhances the whole thing. Well, I want to thank you for hanging out with us, Shelby. It's been great. You
Yeah, this
have
has
set
been so
the
much fun.
you've set the bar high. I want to thank Myra. I'm going to call out Myra for logging in from the Dominican Republic tonight. So you get the distance award, Myra. Bless your heart. It's great to see you again. And for those of you who are curious, our next broadcast of a virtual day trip to wine country is on February 8th. We're doing a special 5 winery show where we're going to profile 5 great wines from New York State for Valentine's Day. And actually, Shelby is on that broadcast as one of the 5 winemakers or winery representatives. So if you're curious about wines for Valentine's Day and you enjoyed this, come on back. We'll be back on February 8th. And thank you guys for tuning in. Shelby, thank you so much for being a part of this. And we will see you soon at the tasting house.
Yes, please come visit me anytime.
I want to try the sparkling.
I highly recommend it.
Excellent. All right,
Wonderful. Thanks
guys.
so much, guys.
Well, thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, everybody, and we will see you soon. Thanks, Shelby.
Thanks.
See you later.
Bye-bye.